Welcome back to the Saturday Scholars College Football Podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Xan, we have some breaking news, man. Colorado is going back to the Big 12. It has been 13 years, but the Buffs have finally come back home to Papa. They are back where they belong in the Big 12, formerly the Big 8. But Xan, this is something that's been kind of like going on, and it's been in the headlines for a while now. Colorado's been flirting with the Big 12. This is nothing really new, but now it is expected to be official in the next 48 hours. How do you feel about this?
This is crazy because we all understood that something was going to happen soon within the next month or two, whether it was going to be a Pac-12 media deal, or it was going to be someone leaving. We knew the writing was on the wall for one outcome or the other. And even if the Pac-12 was going to put together a media deal, we didn't know if it was going to be sufficient, right? So with that being said, the flight risk was always Colorado. Everyone was always concerned about Colorado. And why does Colorado pose the biggest flight risk? Well, let's think about it. As a program, they've been dreadful since leaving the Big 12. And you could argue that there's a lot of programs in the Pac-12 that would service more value to the Big 12. So in order for Colorado to kind of make it into the Big 12 and guarantee their spot, they had to offer some value to the Big 12. And that value was being the first domino to topple the Pac-12. And I think that's why Colorado was the biggest flight risk. And that's why we have Colorado right now being the team to be the first domino.
If you're Colorado, this is a huge win. I think the biggest winner as of right now, all we know is Colorado's joining the Big 12. We don't know about any other schools to date as of today's recording. But as of right now, the biggest winner in this whole thing is Colorado. Because if you're Colorado, you were probably going to be left behind if, let's say, Oregon or Washington jump first. Arizona State jumps first. Utah jumps first. So if you're Colorado, you're basically getting yourself first in line on the bus to the Big 12. Mm-hmm. And, of all the schools in the Pac-12, I mean, Colorado's been in the Big 12 before. They were literally in the Big 12, like, not even that long ago. It's just kind of funny how this is all worked out. It's going to only be 13 years now that Colorado will be in the Pac-12 because they started in 2011. Mm-hmm. This year's their last year. So a 13-year marriage with the Pac-12. Now they're back with their ex for a second marriage.
I'll tell you what, man, and what you said, this is why the domino effect, Colorado had to be the first or they were not going to get an invite if the whole shit fell apart. And, that's why the Big 12 used them. That was their value that they brought to the Big 12, because now they can go take some of those other pieces that they wanted the whole time, So you got to take one to get what you really wanted.
Absolutely. If you're a Big 12 fan, how are you feeling right now? And if you're a Pac-12 fan, how are you feeling right now?
I really think the Pac-12 is kind of screwed, Shoob, and here's why. In speculation, in all this time, there have been many, many deadlines set for George Kliavkoff to set a media rights deal or to get a media rights deal going. And then, they keep pushing it back, and then it got pushed back like several times. And then finally they said, okay, by the end of June, that didn't come to fruition. Here we are towards the end of July. And they said, 3 days ago or so, they were having a meeting to discuss the numbers after Pac-12 media days with all the ADs. Nothing really came of that. And then all of a sudden, Colorado is on the precipice of leaving. And that just kind of tells you that the numbers are not there. The media rights deal is not there. Now that Colorado is no longer on the table, any progress that George Kliavkoff may have made has been certainly undone by that. 100%. That has sent them backwards. And now that Colorado is gone, it makes the Pac-12 more desperate to complete a media rights deal. And if you're more desperate, you lose all your leverage in negotiations, which means you're probably not going to get as competitive of a deal when you come back to the table. So this hurts the Pac-12 on so many levels, and this makes it even less likely that they're going to get a deal that's going to be significant enough for all the schools to want to stay put. I think this spells doom for the Pac-12. I really do.
It seems to be that way looking at the tea leaves. But if you're the Pac-12, let's say, what's the best case scenario, absolute best case scenario for the Pac-12? What happens or what can happen for them to salvage this whole situation?
I'd say the absolute best case scenario for the Pac-12 is you're able to get SMU on board. You get them to sign up like now, and then you get a grant of rights deal that at least secures you enough to, it would have to be competitive enough, mind you, to keep up with the Big 12. Otherwise, everyone else is going to leave. But that is the only thing they can do now. San Diego State is off the table in this cycle because they missed the deadline. Perhaps they would be able to do it in the next cycle, but the thing is, no one's going to sign a grant of rights agreement shorter than 5-6 years. So it's kind of tough, man. But if you can get SMU, maybe convince everyone, that we can do like a renegotiation based on the teams that you add. They kind of have like that clause in there.
Right.
Then they can maybe do something like that with San Diego State, and then maybe, I don't know, go for Colorado State or UNLV, someone like that with like a decent market in their area. But it's tough, man. I really don't. That would be a godsend for them. I really think that would be a very, very tough thing to pull off for George Kliavkoff, especially when you already have, Washington and Oregon with their eyes set on the Big Ten. And shoot, say that Big Ten says, "I'm sorry, we're not expanding. We're waiting on Notre Dame, and if Notre Dame doesn't come, we're not going to expand just yet." Where does that leave Washington and Oregon? They may be forced into the Big 12 for at least one cycle, for one grant of rights cycle, because what else are they going to do? One thing really interesting, Shoob, is all of those schools are losing money from that Comcast agreement. Washington, as good as they have been, they still lost money last year in their athletic department. And I believe the number was going into this year, they're projecting to lose another 7 million in their athletic department in the red. So they have to jump. They can't afford to go independent for a year or two and hope for a media rights deal. So if the Big Ten doesn't come calling, Oregon and Washington are going to the Big 12 for at least one grant of rights.
So you don't think there's any chance now that Colorado is left? Let's say the Big Ten doesn't come calling for Oregon and Washington. Do Oregon and Washington just say, all right, well, Colorado left? Like, that doesn't really do much. If anything, that probably increases their slice of the pie. All right, fine. Bye, Colorado. We'll stick with 9, or we'll just add SMU. What if this actually keeps them together and they don't go to the Big 12? I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm
That's
thinking
the
of all
best
the
case
scenarios.
scenario. But the thing that the Pac-12 really has working against it right now is the timeline. They don't have a lot of time to get this done. And like the closer we get to the season, the more antsy these ADs are going to get for stability. These ADs and these presidents. We talked about expansion options, right? San Diego State was an expansion option. San Diego State missed their window. They missed the deadline to basically formally withdraw from the Mountain West. So their buyout doubled. So it's close to $30 million for their buyout from the Mountain West. So they were forced to return to the Mountain West, which means even if San Diego State wanted to leave in the next cycle, doesn't really work out because the Pac-12 cycle is over in July, not this July, but next July. So the Pac-12 is kind of running out of options here. I know you were kind of playing devil's advocate. You and I were talking about this. You were saying, well, what if they add another team that kind of supplements Colorado? Because it wouldn't be too hard to replace Colorado, right? So maybe they can get SMU to jump. That might be the saving grace. If they can get a team like SMU to jump, maybe it's enough. But ultimately, I don't think they're going to be able to if say they were able to do that in best case scenario, Shoob, I still don't think they put together a competitive enough media deal to keep everyone together. So someone else is going to jump before we can make any tangible progress like that. It's if they had say they had like a year and a half left. Yeah, exactly. I think Arizona,
U of A, where you at? Your mark's hitting you up in the DMs.
I'll tell you what, man. If the Pac-12 had one more year, if their rights expired in July of 2025 instead of 2024, they could survive this. But because they have under a year to complete this, I just don't see it happening, Shoob. These ADs and presidents, someone's going to jump. And if one more team jumps, that's it. That's the nail.
Seems like that's pretty much inevitable now, especially since both conferences will be officially at an odd number of schools. The Big 12 will be at 13, and then the Pac-12 will be at 9. So just doing the math there tells you got to get to even.
I would say the four corner schools are the ones that are most likely in play for the Big 12. And ultimately, Big 10 will have a major role in how the Big 12 looks next year. Because the Big 12,
definitely,
the best case scenario for the Big 12 is to get Oregon, Washington, Utah, and the Arizona schools. Then you have a whole western side of your conference and big market. That honestly, Shoob, what do you think if they were able to pull that off, right? Say the Big 12 was able to pull that off. Their current media share right now is 31.7 million per team based on the new deal after OU and Texas leave. If they were able to pull off those 5 schools for at least the current media rights agreement, which extends, I believe, 6 years after next year, so I think to 2030, 2031, something like that. What number do you think they would get? Do you think it would be close enough to come like close like to the SEC schools to be to where these teams feel comfortable like being in a league together?
I don't know about that. It would definitely increase the share of the slice of the pie, but I still don't think it would be anywhere close near the SEC or the Big Ten, to be honest. Because,
Mhm.
I mean, Oregon, Washington definitely are valuable schools, but the only reason we're talking about them as potential additions for the Big Ten is because they're not in the Big Ten's footprint. If they were
Mhm.
in the Big Ten's footprint and they were still not in the Big Ten, they probably wouldn't be getting an invite from the Big Ten. So there's a reason why the two LA schools were the first ones off the chopping block when the Big Ten came calling. So I still think no matter what happens, the Big 12 will not be anywhere near the Big 10 or the SEC in terms of media rights, TV revenue. I mean, just look at the numbers. I'll show the graph up on the screen. It's kind of scary how badly the
Mhm.
separation is going to get here in the near future. But if you're the Big 12, at least you have something to write home about. Colorado coming in, it's a big first step. A little bit of nostalgia, especially for me, someone watching the college football in the late 2000s. So a little nostalgia feel here, but ultimately, this is more of a first domino, a first mover, if you will. If anything, we'll see how it plays out. Let us know in the comments what you guys think. This will obviously be a hot topic. If you're a Buffs fan, let us know how you feel about this. Welcome back to the Big 12, baby. How you feeling to be back home?
If you're a Pac-12 fan in general, let us know how you feel about this. But anyway, I think if that home run scenario happens, Shub, they could go from that 32 million per share and maybe get it to like 45. And that's
Hey, that's nice.
60%. The grant of rights, according to Brent Yormark, is only 60% of the revenue per team. So 45 million, that can get you up into the 50s. So we'll see.